بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله محمد.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. As-Suyuti relates in Tabi'id as-Sahifa that Mis'ar ibn Kidam came to observe Abu Hanifa and saw him all day long in the mosque, teaching relentlessly, answering every question from both the scholars and the common people, not stopping except to pray, then standing at home in prayer when people were asleep, hardly ever eating or sleeping, and yet the most handsome and gracious of people, always alert and never tired, day after day for a long time, so that in the end he said, I became convinced that he was not an ordinary matter. This was not an ordinary matter, but friendship with Allah. Abu Asim al-Nabil said that Abu Hanifa's nickname was the pillar, al-Watad, because he spent so much time standing in prayer. He would pray at night at such length that his neighbors would invoke Allah for mercy on his behalf, and when he died, the funeral prayer was performed 6 times over him due to the huge crowds in Baghdad. Imam al-Nawawi, in his introductions to Al-Majmu, cited from Imam Abu Hanifa the saying, one must arm oneself in the pursuit of fiqh with strong focus and in the severing of harmful ties with small means to meet one's needs without increase. Some positions of Abu Hanifa, his inference of the time of Asr from the parable of the communities. An example of Abu Hanifa's perspicuity in inferring legal rulings from source texts is his reading of the following hadith. The Prophet ﷺ said, your life in comparison to the lifetime of past nations is like the period between the time of the mid-afternoon prayer and sunset. Your example and the example of the Jews and Christians is that of a man who employed laborers and said to them, who will work for me until midday for 1 qirat each? The Jews worked until midday for 1 qirat each. Then the man said, who will work for me from midday until the Asr prayer for 1 qirat each? The Christians worked from midday until the Asr prayer for 1 qirat each. Then the man said, who will work for me from the Asr prayer until Maghrib prayer for 2 qirats each? And that, in truth, is all of you. Truly, you have double the wages. The Jews and Christians became angry and said, we did more labor, but took less wages. Allah said, have I wronged you in any of your rights? They replied, no. Then he said, this is my blessing which I give to whom I wish. It was deduced from the phrase, we did more labor, that the time of midday to Asr must always be longer than that between Asr and Maghrib. This is confirmed by the following reports. The Prophet ﷺ hastened to pray Dhuhr and delayed praying Asr. The Prophet ﷺ said, Allah have mercy on someone who prays 4 rak'ah before Asr. Ali karamallahu wajha delayed praying Asr until shortly before the sun changed and reprimanded the muadhin who was hurrying him with the words, he is trying to teach us the sunnah. Ibrahim al-Naqai said, those that came before you used to hasten more than you to pray Dhuhr and delay more than you in praying Asr. Al-Tahanawi said, those that came before you are the companions. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu also delayed praying Asr. Sufyan al-Thawri and Abu Hanifa therefore lengthened the time between Dhuhr and Asr by one considering that the time of Asr began when the shadow of an object reached 2 lengths, and 2, preferably delaying the latter prayer for as long as the sun did not begin to redden, up to 1 hour before Maghrib. An added benefit of Abu Hanifa's position is the increase of permitted time for Nawafil, as they are not permitted after Asr. That the earlier time, 1 length shadow, is both the beginning of Asr time and the preferred time is the fatwa of the companions of the Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan and Abu Yusuf, in line with the other 3 schools on the basis of other sound evidence to that effect.
جزاك الله خيرا محمد.
وإياكم.
وصلى
وصلى
الله
الله على سيدنا محمد.
بسم الله. The Musnad compilers differed in their arrangement of names of the companions radiallahu anhum ajma'in. Some of them begin with the 4 pious caliphs radiallahu anhum ajma'in, followed by the remaining 6 of the 10 who had the tiding of paradise from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, i.e. al-ashara al-mubashshara. These are followed by the companions who embraced Islam first, then by those who migrated with the Prophet, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those who participated in the Battle of Badr, and then in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and those who embraced Islam on the occasion of the conquest of Mecca, then women from amongst the companions, until it reaches the generation of the followers of the Tabi'un. Some of the books are arranged alphabetically and some according to regions and tribes. The musnads are not easy to use since their contents are not classified subject-wise. The 4th, the Sahih, sound, authentic collections represented the 4th and basically the last stage in the development of Hadith literature. This is manifested in the 3rd century compilations through the works mainly of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, referred to as Sahihain, or the 2 authentic collections. The term Sahihain is, however, not used in the exclusive sense, as there are Sahih Ahadith in all the other major collections of Hadith. Nor did Al-Bukhari include in his work all the qualified narrators of Hadith, for he only planned to compile a short book Mukhtasar on Hadith, which was not all inclusive of either the narrators or the Hadith. Since Al-Bukhari did not intend his collection to be all-inclusive, it would follow that no one may call a Hadith unreliable or weak simply because it has not appeared in Al-Bukhari. This is also true of Sahih Muslim. Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari traveled widely and devoted 16 years to the compilation of Sahih al-Bukhari, which has remained to this day the most authoritative of all collections. Al-Bukhari interviewed over 1,000 hadith transmitters or sheikhs in the Hijaz, Egypt, Nishapur, Marv, and Iraq, and allegedly collected a vast number of about 600,000 ahadith, from which he then selected 9,082 ahadith. He has repeated ahadith which had more than one chain of isnad, as the strength and reliability of the isnad is deemed to increase with the plurality of its chains of transmission. When such repetitions are taken into account, the original figure of 600,000 is also likely to be drastically reduced, for a single hadith is sometimes transmitted through 10 different chains of transmission, all of which would in end establish just one hadith. Al-Bukhari went on record to say that he offered 2 units of prayer each time he selected a hadith to include in his Sahih al-Bukhari. It seems that Al-Bukhari wrote a good portion of his book during his residence in Mecca and Medina, and the rest in Basra, Kufa, and Bukhara. Another report has it that he completed the first draft of his work in the Holy Mosque in Mecca and the rest in Bukhara. When Al-Bukhari completed his work, he showed it to some of the leading ulama of his time, the Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Yahya ibn Ma'in, and Ali al-Madini, amongst others, who were among the important sources or sheikhs of Al-Bukhari, and they were pleased with it and verified it, except for 4 ahadith, but it is said that Al-Bukhari kept those and verified them to be reliable. Ali ibn al-Madini, was the most learned man of his time, especially on defects, ilal of hadith, and he expressed full confidence in al-Bukhari. Al-Bukhari was meticulous in the verification of hadith and yet tactful and gentle in regards to those whom he impugned as unreliable. Some of his expressions, such as سكت عنه, many remain silent concerning him, or فيه نظر, one has to look into him, or تركه, abandon, and similar other epithetic descriptions of Al-Bukhari are noted in this regard as being generally clear of backbiting or defaming others. He was affluent and had inherited wealth, which he generously spent on students and other charitable causes. Discounting all repetitions, Al-Bukhari contains 2,602 ahadith. It is divided into 106 books and a total of 3,450 chapters. Each chapter bears a heading which is descriptive of its contents. It seems that Al-Bukhari usually took a portion of the hadith for the heading of the chapter. Some of these headings are reflective of Al-Bukhari's personal insight and knowledge of hadith that is not found in other collections. Yet it has also meant rather too many headings and chapters, which are, however, too numerous and tend to make the work somewhat difficult to use. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد. بسم الله محمد.
The Mus'haf of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu died 68 after Hijrah. Ibn Abbas also wrote a Mus'haf which, according to the Itqan, also included the 2 additional surah which Ubay had. Again, his arrangement of the surah differed from the other copies. In Surah Al-Baqarah, he has a total of 21 variants, some of them identical with Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu and Ubay radiallahu anhu, as well as some other companions. According to the Itqan, the Mus'haf of Musa al-Ash'ari, died 44 after Hijrah, contained the same material as Ubay had. There is only one variant reported from him in Surah Al-Baqarah, namely that he read Ibrahim in place of Ibrahim. Hafsa, died 45 after Hijrah, had 3 variants in the same surah, and Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu had 5. Examples. To further illustrate, here are a number of examples. They have been taken as far as possible from well-known surah. While perhaps better examples exist to illustrate the points under discussion, they might not be understood as easily by readers less familiar with the Quranic text. Difference in voweling. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu is reported to have read in Surah 111 verse 4, Hamilatun al-Khataba in place of Hamalata al-Khatab, which could not be distinguished on the basis of the early written text, which omitted both haraka and alif. The actual text must have looked something like this. Difference in spelling. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reportedly wrote in Surah 1 verse 6, as well as all other places, the word as-sirat as as-sirat. As-sirat. Some variants attributed to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu. Variants on Surah Al-Ikhlas. Even today, the variants and synonyms are found in such copies of the text as are attributed to the companions and are of some value to us in the sense that they may have served as an early rudimentary form of tafsir. For example, according to some reports, the words Salah al-Wusta, middle prayer, were read and written by Hafsa, Ubay, and Ibn Abbas as Salat al-Asr, i.e. afternoon prayer. As long as the Sahaba wrote their own copies for personal use only, there was nothing wrong. If they did not strictly adhere to the order of the surah, which was the order of the Quran, Later on, when Uthman's copy became the standard version, the companions adopted the order of this copy, including Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, who perhaps differed most. There were also, as indicated, some variant readings in these copies, when some words were pronounced and spelled in slightly different ways, etc. However, it should be noted that variant readings are usually reported by a single person only, and occasionally by perhaps two or three, while the version called the Uthmanic text is mutawattir, i.e., transmitted by numerous people and is without doubt authentic. The Mus'haf of Uthman radiallahu anhu. During the time of Uthman radiallahu anhu, differences in reading the Quran became obvious, and after consultation with the companions, Uthman radiallahu anhu had a standard copy prepared from the Suhuf of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu that were kept with Hafsa radiallahu anha at that time. The following is the report transmitted in the Sahih Bukhari. Narrated Anas bin Malik radiallahu anha, Hudayfa bin al-Yaman came to Uthman at the time when the people of Sham and the people of Iraq were waging war to conquer Armenia and Azerbaijan. Hudayfa was afraid of the people of Sham and Iraq, differences in the recitation of the Quran. So he said to Uthman, O chief of the believers, save this nation before they differ about the book Quran, as Jews and the Christians did before. So Uthman sent a message to Hafsa saying, send us the manuscripts of the Quran so that we may compile the Quranic materials in perfect copies and return the manuscripts to you. Hafsa sent it to Uthman. Uthman then ordered Zayd bin Thabit, Abdullah bin al-Zubayr, Sa'id bin al-As, and Abdurrahman bin Harith bin Hisham to rewrite the manuscripts in perfect copies. Uthman said to the three Qurayshi men, in case you disagree with Zayd bin Thabit on any point in the Quran, then write it in the dialect of Quraysh as the Quran was revealed in their tongue. They did so, and when they had written many copies, Uthman returned the original manuscripts to Hafsa. Uthman sent to every Muslim province one copy of what they had copied, and ordered that all the other Quranic materials, whether written in fragmentary manuscripts or whole copies, be burnt. Zayd bin Thabit added, a verse from the Surah Ahzab was missed by me when we copied the Quran, and I used to hear Allah's Apostle sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting it. So we searched for it and found it with Khuzaymah bin Thabit al-Ansari. That verse was, among the believers are men who have been true in their covenant with Allah. The following events
جزاك الله خيرا يا شيخ.
وإياكم وصلى
صلى
الله على
الله عليه
سيدنا محمد.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.